Hello, LOL listeners. Today we are welcoming Amarivi Devanathan from Chennai. He was in Singapore for quite long. A year ago, he shifted back to India, and he's a very well-known blogger and uh, Facebook personality, and a good friend of mine. Welcome, Amarivi, to our podcast. Over to the
Thank you very much.
I am very honored to welcome Mr. Amaravi, who is an electrical engineer by qualification and a banking computer systems architect by profession. He has been a banker by day and a blogger by night. He has published 5 books so far. Monday is not Tuesday, Palaya Kanaku, Nan Ramanujan, Singapore Diary, and Neyveli Kadaigal. He runs a website by the name of Amaravi's Aphorisms. Aphorisms. I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. It's called Amaravi's Aphorisms, and we are very, very happy to have you on our podcast. And we would like to know about your experiences with the publications of your English book, which is Monday is not Tuesday. Over to Ms. Jayanti for the first question.
Yes, Monday is not Tuesday. I have read the book and I felt it was so fresh and new when I read it. And the book itself was very well done with the illustrations and things. So Amaravi, could you please share with us the publication process, mainly the publication process? Did you knock on the doors of many publishers? And how did you decide on your son doing the illustration and all that? So over to you.
Yeah. So this Monday is not Tuesday. The complete series was inside of me for close to 25 to 30 years. I mean, that indicates as to how long I have been out of school. Right? So they are basically my experiences in my school, and these have been fine-tuned over a period of time, and they actually appeared as a series of blog posts in my blog, which is amaravi.in, and those were very well received. Then somebody recommended as to why not you publish a book. Then I started scouting for the publishers. I was in Singapore at the time. So there they had conducted, there was a writers festival. In that writers festival, they had introduced a speed dating concept. So speed dating is they will introduce authors or aspiring authors to a series of publishers. So we had only 2 to 2.5 minutes to pitch for the book, right? So I had pitched it to around 8 to 10 publishers.
Wow.
And out of which 5 said yes, they would definitely go for it. But at the end of the day, nobody came. Then I decided there was no point. So there was no point. And then Amazon saved me. I went to the Kindle Direct Publishing. So that book was published online in the Kindle version. And I was waiting for, that book did reasonably well. And it was well received. There were so many articles, emails on that as well. But still, I did not find a publisher to publish it. Then again, I went back to Amazon. They brought this, the POD, the print on demand. So I used that to bring out a physical copy.
Oh.
And so still there is no publisher for that book. I am the only publisher for that. And I'm just waiting for the POD concept to be introduced in India by Amazon. Right now, this POD in English, right, is available only in the US. Right? I am just waiting for the day when they would be made available in India, both for English as well as in Tamil. I think it is available in India in English, but the
Private.
cost and other things are all only in US dollar. So it doesn't work out here. So I'm just waiting for that day. So
Got
it
it,
is how it all started. And when the blog posts were on, my younger son, who was 8 to 10 years at that time, he used to draw pictures based on the stories I used
So
to tell him. I said,
So
why not do I
cute.
just add it?
So
But
cute.
I did one thing that which was really useful was I found an English professor to review it. Right. So any other whoever wants to write in whichever language it is, you need to have a reviewer, and this it has to be proofread completely. And in some places, I had some excellent recommendations from them, saying that it could be changed in this manner, and so that you don't lose the story there. The speed should be kept up. It was very useful in that aspect. But in
Fantastic.
spite of all this, I am yet to find a proper publisher for that book.
What about Notion Press? It has POD, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. But now, when this book came about, this company was not there. Okay, so it came about, I know, probably later, 2016, 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
Only that was the time it came up. So if it would have been there at that time, I would have utilized it, but I did not have.
Even now you can go for it. Anyways, okay.
So yeah, our next question is, you said it was initially a blog which you had compiled back into a book, right? There is a huge difference between writing a blog and writing a book. How much of editing or how much of transformation did your script have to go through from being a blog to becoming a book?
Okay, yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it is very true. You just cannot import your blog contents into a book. That is not at all possible, because your blog has a kind of an immediacy. You speak, right? You speak to your readers in first person, and then you quote certain very contemporary examples. But when that goes into a book, and this story was going back to 25 to 30 years ago, so I had to consciously remove the contemporary examples that I would have quoted in my blog. So those had to be removed, and I had to substitute with examples and stories pertaining to that particular period in time, in the 80s, 70s, etc. So yes, it is not that you make a blog and just import into a book. That doesn't work.
It needs editing, shouldn't also. Sure. It shouldn't also, because like you said, it is more like a blog is more one-on-one and a book is like one to many. So it shouldn't work also. Yeah.
What would you advise to aspiring readers, also readers, writers as well as readers, to read regularly to enrich their vocabulary? Because I know, I know you're one of the persons I know who has, rich vocabulary, and you really apply also. And in that sense, what would you recommend?
I don't think I can recommend or advise, but I can tell you as to what I do or what I have been doing so far. Frankly, I love languages, right? Across the globe, wherever I have been working, I have seriously attempted to learn the language of that particular area. In some regions, I have succeeded. In one, especially in Singapore, when I tried to learn Chinese, I failed miserably. So that's one of the most difficult languages. So especially with respect to English, right? English readership, especially from an Indian English perspective, we need to understand one thing, that this is not our tongue. This is an alien tongue. It's an alien language. So you have to get into that language to understand its nuances. So how do I read? suppose I pick up a fiction, say for example from Ruskin Bond, who's apparently an Indian author, right? So I read it once and I stop at very many paragraphs and go back and say, yeah, if I read that paragraph once, I know what is there. But I would like to know how he has said that. Why he has used a particular word. Why is the sentence like this?
Okay.
Why has he used a comparative tense there? Why it is not a positive one? Why it is not? Why has he not compared with something else? Right? And how is it that this guy is able to convey such a deep thought in so short, so fewer words? Right? And I usually try to attempt to write that again in my own words and see, okay, this is where it failed. So I will have to improve in these areas. So the only thing that I do to enrich myself is that how to write short. That is what I learned from these authors. Right? I not only read the stories or the non-fiction content, but I also look at how a sentence is written. Because if it is Tamil, I know because it's my tongue. Because it is English. Though I've been studying, English medium from LKG onwards, still it is alien. And you need to get into the story and look at it from an author's perspective to find as to why a particular word was used. Right? Yeah, that is how I do so far.
Very good.
Okay, so like we already spoke, there was a difference from writing a blog and writing a book. How have you been able to use social media or your blog site? Have you been using it to promote your book, or have you been posting something on that for the Kindle version of the book?
Okay, all my readers, I would say, who I have got until now, is only because of the social media. Because I do not have any great backing from any publishing house and stuff like that. The people know me because I write often on interesting topics in the social media. So what I do was what I have been doing so far is I write a blog post and I give a link in all the social media channels that I have. And I take the discussion further. In that fashion, I have ensured that there is a committed readership to whatever I write. And it has worked out either way, right? And you get certain readers who are very aggressive, who say this is whatever you are saying is wrong. I don't agree. On the other hand, there are some who are actually praising. At the same time, the social media also acts as a great guide for it. Because over a period of last 5-6 years, or even more than that, I have understood that one of my aged English teachers she is also following my blog. So I have to be extra careful now as to what I am saying.
Interesting.
So
how have the social media and your blogging and your Facebook and all have helped your book? As in, have they helped you, or have those reviews, small or big or short or lengthy, those reviews, are they helping you in reaching your book to wider readership?
Absolutely. Without social media, I don't exist. My books would never have been known because I do not have the backing of any publishing house. Right? Just because of the power of the internet, the world knows that there is one guy called Amaravi who doesn't have anything else to do but write. Otherwise, he would have been inside of a black box.
I wanted to know, is that translating into sales? a Kindle or print versions, is the sale of the book increasing?
Absolutely.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. Yes. So what the readers do, that when they read a book, they give their opinion. They give, I mean, whether it is good or bad, that is beside the point. They say something about the book, and that reaches their own followers. So there is an exponential exposure of this book. There is no one-to-one communication. It is like one to many and one to many and many to many, and it goes on and on and on. Right?
Viral.
And they also introduced guys, and the other tactic that I had used, and it is actually useful, is that I did not use the book sales for myself. I have always tried to connect these book sales to some kind of a charity, either the cow protection or helping a school and that kind of stuff. So when this is done, then what happens is that there is, in place of buying one book, the guy buys 5 or 6 books.
Oh,
Yes.
lovely.
Right? It increases the sales at the same time, because they also think, okay, now it is going to go for a good cause. And I also ensure that periodically I publish images of the charity work that that has happened, right? As to my visit to the Kaushala or to the school, where I interact with the students, where I give them the books and kind of stuff. So that conveys the message to the end, to my reader, that yes, what he has said is true, right? So we will have to support him. But that should have meant that I should have bought a couple of bungalows in Anna Nagar. It has not happened.
Interesting.
Got it. Yeah, and see, like though you say it's how to say, you've been writing about your school days, though it's supposed to be a non-fiction rendition. There will be a little bit of fiction in it, right? You will have to add in a little bit of fiction, or maybe a little bit of exaggeration to make the point go better. Has there been a point while you were writing the book or in your blogs while you thought this has become way too much fiction, and I cannot see myself anymore in this one story or one chapter?
You have touched on a very important point. There is always an element of fiction, even if it is a non-fiction.
Exactly.
Now, in this case, there is always an element of 80-20.
Okay.
80 will be non-fiction, 20 will definitely be fiction. Because without fictional characters or fictional sayings, you cannot bring in that kind of a dramatic effect.
Exactly.
That will enrich a short story. So if you are going to write a novel, you can go on and on and on, because you don't have the limitations of time and space.
Yeah.
In the case of a short story, in the case of a collection of many short stories, right, you have a small template. You have some n number of words within which you will have to conclude. And in this internet age, your story should only be within 2 scrolls. If it goes beyond 2 scrolls, you have lost the reader. And it is true. And I have also seen some of my articles which have been great analytical work. I would have taken 1 month's time to gather very many statistics, and I would have backed up with evidence and this and that. 80 people would have read it. Just a short post, which is more of a fiction with some element of humor, some imaginary, right? That could have reached 1,000 shares. Right? At the end of the day, you begin to think, is it really worth writing analytical articles? So it is a reality of this internet. This internet is helping. At the same time, the attention
people-
span is very less.
Less nowadays.
Nobody
yes.
has time for anything.
Yeah. Now we come to reviewing, getting reviews. What's the best way to get your book reviewed in the current times, do you think?
Again, once you become popular, in the SM sense of the word, when you say popular, I am not saying that media support would be there. Media support is not there. Nobody wants any budding writers, because those writers who are already hogging the limelight, they don't allow the others to come in for various considerations. I'm not going to go into all that. So again, in my case, what I have done, I will reach out to my readers on the social media, saying that I am doing this work. Can you review? Can you go through this and then give me a comment, right? And as most of what I write in the form of a book is coming from my blog, these readers would have already got acquainted with what I have been writing. So they usually oblige, right? And then in fact, for all my books, that is the case. Readers from the internet, they have come forward to do a review based on my request. This is exactly what I have done.
Oh,
And
great,
yes,
great.
without review, nothing works.
So have you tried getting your copies of the book Mondays, not Tuesday, or in other books also, to school libraries? Your Neyveli school library might have taken, that is different, but generally other school libraries also in Chennai, have you tried getting copies sold to them?
Not yet. Because I did not know how to do it. Therefore, I have not attempted it. If there's a way, I would like to do it.
Okay.
And especially when it comes to Chennai, in the state of Tamil Nadu, getting a book inside the government school libraries and the government library network is not easy. There is a huge lobby and all that. And as an individual, you don't stand to gain. Unless you are backed by a big publisher and he does it for you. As an individual author, you cannot do anything. I mean, it is what I have understood. But otherwise also, I have not approached any library. If people ask for some copies for my book to be placed in their own school libraries, which has happened, some smaller schools, privately run schools, etc. Yes, I give it to them at half the price. Okay. So otherwise, there is no institutional mechanism for individual authors to get their books placed into the government system yet.
Okay. So usually when you see, right, usually kids' books will have more of illustrations, and when there is like maybe an art book will have more of an illustration. Do you think the illustration that you have used has enhanced the book, or did it just have a sentimental value because it was by your son?
No. Yes and no, because this book, Monday is not Tuesday, the illustration was done by my son, and yes, it had a sentimental value, but it also added an element of interest in all the stories. But in another subsequent book, which is called as Neyveli Kadaigal, I had requested an illustrator from Bahrain, who is a chief banker actually. So in his free time, he was doing it. And because I knew that, he was exceptionally capable and exceptionally talented in that. And I would say that, those illustrations actually added value to the story. And when I look at the illustrations myself, I understand that the attention to detail that the illustrator has given in order to understand my story and then depict it in a pictorial form, that definitely adds to the value of the story. And at the end of the day, when a user or when a reader is going to read your story without an illustration, he would have a mental image of the characters and happenings, etc., which is a very good thing to have. However, if you have an illustrator who is going to paint some kind of a picture of a particular story, you give him an alternate version of the image as well. So this, at the end of the day, the book reader is left with two images. One that the author tries to paint, the other that the illustrator has given. And a particular story can be called to be of a, extremely successful if these two pictures are the same, which is not the case in many situations.
Yes.
However, with an illustration, the reader stands to gain.
So, how important is the book cover and the proofreading stage, the proofreading by itself? How important, and how did you get it done by anybody else, or you did everything or yourself, the proofreading part? And who did the book cover?
Okay, these two are one of the most important aspects of any book. In this case, we have to go against that adage that you have to judge a book by its cover. Here, in this case, especially in this case of internet purchases, where attention span is extremely less, in order to get the buyer or the reader into the book, you need a proper book cover, and the cover has to be attractive, right? So he should get the essence of the book, by the picture that is there. So therefore, you have to invest in the cover design. There is no doubt about it. Number two, unless you are an established author and you will anyway have a great readership, and irrespective of what you write, they will buy. No, in that case, fine. But as of now, in this internet age, yes, when people have to click to buy, you have to give them the bait of the book cover. That is very important. Number one. Now, when the book reader buys your book and he enters inside the book, you should not cheat him. When you say, yeah, so when I say you should not cheat him, it should be, it should not be like, the story has a poor sentence structure, or whether that it is grammatically horrible, because we are experts in killing any language, right? So we should never ever do that. So yes, as English is not our mother tongue, we are not expected to be experts. But if you are already one, fantastic. If you are not, don't pretend that you are one. Therefore, write what you want to write and give it to somebody to proofread. There is no harm in that. And if you have to pay them, fine. Even then, it is actually worth it, because the person who is spending his time and money to buy your book, he should not feel offended at the end of the whole exercise. Right? This is what I do. Because for every book of mine, I have engaged a professional proofreader.
Okay, got it. Yeah, my next question is, see, you were writing about your school days. So the experience would have actually been different when it was happening and when you are reminiscing about it, when you're looking back at it. So there will be two different classes that time you were already experiencing, so your thought process would have been different. And now when you look back, you maybe because of age, or maybe because of maturity, or maybe because you knew the other side of the story later, there will be differences. How do you make sure that these two at least align? They may not have to be the same, but they should at least align, right? So how do you make sure that happens?
Fantastic question. Here is what an author has to be true to what he believes in. He should have the integrity to say what he wants to say. the author should not act. There should be no pretense. He should be open. Whatever he might have to say in that particular story, because he would have experienced it, he would have seen the story happening in front of his eyes, he should remain true to his inner spirit and reflect what he had seen. Probably add some masala here and there for the interest of the story, but never play with the integrity of the story. For example, I will just give a very short example, small example, which is a really big problem nowadays, is that when you write, for example, when you write in Tamil, for example, I'm saying, by the choice of your words and the way in which the characters speak the language, you will know as to which region this person belongs to. And what is the social strata that he is connected with, and the most Indian thing as to what is the religion and the caste, right? There is no
unfortunately
but there is no harm in hiding this. You will have to be true to yourself. If I am going to say, I mean, so for example, if I am going to write a story of a Tamil Brahmin who is going to speak the language spoken in a Muslim household, you are spoiling the story. You are not being true to your reader. You are not painting a true picture. See, it could be a fiction, no doubt about it, but don't generalize things. Don't speak in the general lingo. You connect, you expose the exact lingo that happened at that point in time. Only when you do that, will you be able to convey the story in the true sense of the word. Otherwise, it will be like making all kind of arrangements to a corpse. Right? I'm sorry for using a very crude kind of an example, right? So, how much ever you decorate a corpse, there is no point. So that's what it is. So the story could be different, but say what really happened and stick to that particular timeline. When you write about when you write a story about, which happened in the 1980s, don't talk about the iPhone. It doesn't have any relation. Don't bring in any character, any kind of an indication that these things are would have happened, because even Steve Jobs wouldn't have known about it at that time. Right? So be true to yourself, be true to the story is what I would like to say, and this is what I do. And I have often been accused of being, why are your characters speaking a Brahminical language? How do you expect an 80-year-old grandmother of mine to speak in English? Or not possible. She will only speak what she is able to speak.
Yes.
And when I write the story, I have to say what she told. I cannot say what I want to say that she said. No. I have to say what she said. That's it.
Yeah, the credibility and the life.
Yes, it's
life. Yes, sorry. I understand. So
I have one last question before we go to the world of W's. The thing is, see, like you said, it usually when you write a story, many people will not be able to differentiate between an author and his story. There is a huge connect. They think that because an author writes a particular way, that is how he is as a person. Even in fiction, that's how it's perceived. Like let's say, for example, if you take Mr. Amish Tripathi, he writes a lot of mythology, and people think he must be very religious. all that. And when you take Chetan Bhagat's book, because he writes a lot of young adult fiction, they think that is how he is as a human being also. That's how he is with life. That those are pure fictitious books, and people are doing that. When you are writing about your own story, how much of judgment of the story has fallen on you as an author?
This is a very difficult question, actually. Yes, it is. What you say is perfectly true. People tend to connect me with the story, and they tend to connect the exact words that the different characters speak to me, and say that, why did you use this word? Why did you use that word, etc. What can I do? These are the words spoken by those characters. Now, I cannot go back in time and then say, no, this is not it is unparliamentary. I mean, it would become unparliamentary 15, 20 years down the line. So therefore, you don't speak. That's not possible. So, and now they think, because you have used this word, you are so. Which is, unfortunately, that is the reality. And it has actually happened. I will give a small example. My book, Non-Ramanujan, it's historical fiction. There was a particular character that it is the character belongs to the late 11th century. So I had used a particular. Oh, is it on now?
It is now. Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So in this particular example, in my book called as Non-Ramanujan, there's a character that is speaking that is from the late 11th century AD. So there, that particular character uses a specific word to denote a person belonging to a particular area. Right? That particular word is considered unparliamentary after 1000 years now. Now, this book has gone out. There was a huge uproar and said, how can you use this word? I said, yeah, that is what you say is absolutely right. Now, you need to find a way for me to go back to the 11th century and then ask the person as to, and then advise Srimad Ramanuja, say that don't use that word. So this is fiction. And a story belongs to a particular point in time, and it is not my opinion. And then subsequently, this person said, I mean, he's a well-known person in this area, so in this world. So he says, it reflects very poorly on you. It says that you still continue to believe that the people from that area are like that. I said, I leave it to your judgment. I am not so. That's what. I mean, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, true.
Completely. Absolutely.
So I mean, until recently, we have been using the word handicapped.
Yeah.
Right. In the last couple of years, it has become unparliamentary, which is fine. I mean, we have to evolve, we have to improve, we will adapt the new words and go. But it doesn't mean that whoever used that particular word a couple of years ago are all wrong.
I know. Yeah. True.
Yeah. So I think now it's time for our session, which is called Word of W's. Word of W's is nothing but a set of 6 questions: which, what, when, where, why, how, all that. And you can give the answer briefly. It doesn't have to be much elaborate or anything. The questions are framed that way because if a listener is not able to listen to the entire podcast, he could just scroll and come to this part and listen to the gist of it at least. Yeah. So the first question is, who are your target audience with this book and with the blog?
You are talking about any specific book?
Mondays, with Mondays,
not just.
The Monday is not Tuesday. The target audience is the people in the age group of 18 to 80. Because it stands across time. And those who are 18, they will understand how life was in the 80s. And those who are in the 80s, they would not have experienced that kind of a life. So they will want to read it. And those who are in between 18 and 80 would anyway have experienced this life, and they will be going back in time, and then they will be thinking about their own adulthood.
So when is your next book out due?
October, November this year.
Tell us about the book. What is it about?
Okay, so it's going to be a period novel. It's going to be in Tamil. It's going to be on the Great Famine of 1875, and it is going to cover a period of 120 years that family had to endure between 1875 until 2020. I would say. I will not say 2020. 2010.
Interesting. Got it. So how many at this Monday is not Tuesday? This book, how many at edit or how many at draft was it? How many drafts did you have to go through before you came up with this final book? And how many years did it take for you to, shape it up to this quality?
Monday is not Tuesday. I underwent at least 3 drafts. It had to be, the first draft I did myself, after I completed the manuscript. Then after that, it was the proofreaders were doing it, and they came up with 2 drafts. So what you see now is a result of 2 drafts, actually 3 drafts. And every book should be edited, and it has to be proofread at least twice.
Okay.
Where can we find your works? Samples of your book on
Amazon.in or Amazon.com.
Okay.
Yes, you go there and you can search by my name.
Got it. So because you've been talking about the importance of proofreading, how much of a proofreader's opinion are you supposed to take? Because if it's going to affect your story majorly, then it will lose the credibility of the author, right? So how much of it are you supposed to take, and how much are you going to have it to your own discretion?
It is again a very good question. And you have to be very careful as to who you are going to choose as your proofreader. I usually chose writers or English professors, right, who have been doing this job. I have reached out to them via various blogging sites wherein they had agreed to do it, right? So when they say that a particular sentence should be rewritten like this, right, I have both the versions and I compare with the overall story structure. Whatever appeals to me, only I take. Unless what I have written is grammatically incorrect, I don't entirely agree to what the proofreader says. However, if the proofreader insists, say, on a particular kind of a structure, I usually go with them because I know that they know more than me as far as English language is concerned.
So people have been talking about self-publishing, investing to publish on their own. Haven't you? Why not self-publishing for Amarivi?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Why not self-publishing for you? For the books, the Mondays, not Tuesday, you said you didn't get any publishing.
Yes, that is an option. But again, I will have to do the marketing myself. I'll have to go to the bookstalls myself, speak to the the various bookstores, and they will have their own glasses through which they will be looking at me and all that. So I don't want to go that. And I'm not a full-time author as well. So I write only part-time. I also have a day job. So if I am a full-time writer, probably I will do that. But right now, I don't have the energy to do that.
Got it. Most of our podcast guests they're part-time authors, and that's why I think we are happy to have this community, to even form this community. Unless and until the author is a best-selling author, at least in India, we cannot be full-time authors. If it's not going to win us our bread and butter, then we wouldn't be, right? Yeah.
Right.
So this is the last question for this segment and this session. Because you have already written out blogs, and because they're already published in another platform, it's when it comes to books, it's easier to reduce plagiarism. It's easier to copyright a book or the idea. How are you handling plagiarism with your blogs, or have you faced plagiarism with your blogs?
Yet another very good question. And I have faced it at least 2 times. Actually, 2 stories that I had written in my first book in Tamil, Paraya Kanakku, they were republished by another person. And unfortunately, they were pertaining to a particular, that story contained some serious references to a particular sect of a religious order.
Oh.
So this new story, or my story, which has been refurbished by another person, that story reached this order. And the head of that order, he was connected with my uncle. So they had called me and said, only you are aware of this story. How did this happen? I said, yes, this is my story. They said, no, it is not your story. It is somebody else's story. How does the other guy know? And then I came to know that somebody has stolen my story, and it has happened twice. Then unfortunately or fortunately, that publisher had mentioned his name and his contact number also. So I immediately called him and said, I'm going to file a suit because this is my story. So at the end of the day, what happened? He stood his ground. For 1 week, he said, no, I know the story. I have lived in this village. I know these people, and they have told me this story. I said, okay, this is a story that I had published when I was in Singapore. And this, because the story has been published in Singapore, automatically I get the copyrights from the Singapore government. So I am the holder of the copyright. So therefore, I am going to file a case against you. In another 1 hour, he gave me a call and he sent a detailed reply saying that I apologize, it's not my story. It is one instance. In another instance, another story of mine, it came with just one change. The hero of the story was changed. Otherwise, it became a huge hit in the WhatsApp University. And unfortunately, it came to me as well, saying that my father said, this is a very good story. I said, this is my story. Why are you saying this? Then he said, okay, yeah, somewhere I have read this story. This is in my book. And now it has come back to you. It is the new order that we are in. And unfortunately, I did not know who did that. So it is so. Even books which are published in Amazon, using the Kindle Direct Publishing method, they are also being copied left, right, and center. There are dedicated piracy channels in the Telegram and WhatsApp. Okay, when books are, this Obama's book, which has come quite recently, the book was published at X time. Exactly 15 minutes later, I have the PDF copy of that book via WhatsApp. That is the reality. So
Oh my
I
God.
do not know how we are going to solve this issue. Of course, it's not going to affect Obama because he would have had enough money by then. But I am
Authors
not
like us.
Obama, right? I am after all Amurvi, so I can't afford anything. So this is a problem, and the best reaction I think that we should have in this case is that imitation is the best form of flattery. That's all. Nothing you can do about it.
True.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amurvi, for this, heart to heart. And can you say a few words to our listeners, and can you share how you felt through the session?
I am actually thankful for this heartfelt, heart-to-heart talk that we have had so far, and I am thankful for this opportunity as well, because no podcast channel or a YouTube channel has asked me the questions pertaining to how did I get, how was I able to publish, etc., until now. Though I have been speaking in various channels on various other topics pertaining to history, I think this is the only podcast channel which talks about books getting published, what are the challenges, and some words of advice, etc., to aspiring authors. And I think in that way, this channel is doing a great job. And I wish you all the best in the years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.